So since you guys seemed to like my last travel vlog when I went to ASHG in Vancouver, I am actually traveling to another conference today. So I am going to the American Heart Association in New Orleans. So I figured I would try and vlog this conference too. I'm going to do it a little differently. I'm going to try and do it real vlogging style to you on the phone this whole time because I don't have a vlogging camera. So we're going to see how it goes. So I'm actually a lot more nervous about this conference than I was about the last one, because at the last one I was presenting a poster, and so that's fine. I mean, you make a poster, you go stand by the poster, and you talk to some people who come up, and that's okay. But this time I submitted an abstract for this conference, and I clicked, because they give you a selection. Do you want to present a poster, or do you want to do a poster or a presentation? And so I clicked poster only. And I've been telling this to every single person that I talked to recently about this conference, but I clicked poster only. I know that I clicked poster only. I went back and I looked, and they gave me a talk. So I was not thinking that this project was ready for a talk, especially not a talk to a meeting that draws 18,000 people. Now, admittedly, the room that I'm going to be in is going to have maybe 100 people. I don't know. I'm hoping it only has 100 people. But it's a session at a gigantic cardiology conference, and I haven't done anything like that before. So I'm not worried about the talk itself that much. I'm worried about the 5 minutes of questions after my 10-minute talk. We will see how it goes. Well, day one was tiring. Conferences are exhausting. And I feel like I had 40 things that when I was walking around today, I was like, I'm going to vlog that to the camera, that now my brain is just mush. This is definitely a very different conference in that it's doctors and not scientists. And so I was joking this morning about how oh, I'm so professionally dressed. But then I showed up and everybody was in suits, and I was like, oh, okay, no, I'm not. But there were the usual things. There were tons of talks in the exhibit hall and a terrifying dummy thing. I guess it's for CPR, but it's horrifying. I will say this exhibit hall is super different. I'm used to really liking the exhibit halls because I walk around and it's vendors for lab stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I'd love to try your new pipette. Let me try your new pipette. This is awesome, pipetting. But this one was companies advertising drugs to doctors, which was weird. It was super weird. I mean, I guess it makes sense that this is a cardiologist thing and not a scientist thing, but strange. But I went to talks, and I went to a poster session, and I snuck a peek at the room I'm going to be talking in tomorrow, and it's maybe fits 80 to 100 people, so it's not the worst. But now I am back in the hotel room, and I have to go out for dinner with my lab soon, which is exciting, and we're in New Orleans, and that's going to be exciting. But mostly I'm just panicking about my talk, and so instead of going out and grabbing drinks with everyone before dinner, I'm sitting here and nervously practicing my talk, just practicing and practicing. Today is the day. I skipped most of the morning talks because I stayed in and continued to practice my talk, but it's today. So after freaking out all day and going on a walk to try and stop myself from freaking out, and then freaking out in the room before the talk, and then not hearing any of the talks that went before me because I was so nervous, my talk actually went okay, I think.
So we're actually creating sort of a molecular benefit here in these cells.
Some of my lab came out to support me, which was really nice, and I actually was a little disappointed. So the part I had been most worried about was the Q&A session afterwards, right? Because that's always scary if somebody asks a mean question and doesn't think you did something right. But what ended up happening is that I actually got very few questions. I got questions from only the moderators of the panel, and they asked very clinically focused questions, which makes some sense with the stuff that I was presenting. But there are a couple very critical questions that I get every time I present this research, and they're totally warranted questions, but nobody even brought those up. And so I don't know, it's good. I just, whenever I don't get questions, I worry that well, maybe I didn't explain it well enough for people to understand it enough to actually ask me questions. So really, of course, this is just me freaking out over things, as always. But then post-talk, we had a lab dinner to celebrate, and we went out and found some music and had some drinks, so that was really nice. And then this morning, I was so tired, but I got up and I went to another talk by somebody else in my lab, and then I walked around the conference a little bit. I went to a rapid-fire session. I went to the posters. I actually talked to somebody at a poster that I was really, really interested in, And so that was great, and I got her card, and so I'm going to email her because her research is very similar to my research in an interesting way, and so hopefully I have made a good connection there. So that was good. And then about that time, it was early afternoon, and my flight is at like 6:30, and I was just so tired. Conferences are exhausting, and so I decided to wander around New Orleans a little bit. So I went to Jackson Square and treated myself to some beignets from Cafe Du Monde. And then I wandered around a little bit, and then finally was just carrying my shoulder bag and my suitcase and was wandering New Orleans and decided it was time to come back to the airport. So, all in all, I would say this was a successful conference. I went to some interesting talks, which was good. I got in some good lab bonding, which I think is an important part of conferencing. And I gave my very first conference talk, which was terrifying, but it's over now, and I can say that I've given a talk at a conference. And I maybe made a good connection at a poster session. So, I think that's a pretty good conference goal list completed. Go forth and do science.